Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This week's project is a maple log bowl, so stick around and see how it turns out. So using a chainsaw here to get the log to a somewhat round shape. And drilling for the woodworm screw here. And I get asked a lot why I don't use a faceplate. Personal preference really. I find the worm screw holds pretty well and it's just easier and faster. I might use a faceplate on something that's heavy, and although this was heavy, it wasn't completely necessary for a faceplate. So I guess to each his own. So trying to get the blank in round here. The tool I'm using is the Jimmy Clues, considered a hollowing tool I think, but it's the largest tool I have, and it does good work on these logs, at least to get them started. I'll put a link in the description to the tool if you want to check it out. So continuing to go slow here, just trying to get it round so I can increase the speed and switch over to the bowl gouge. Different angle shot here. This is still the Jimmy Clues tool. Adjusting the tool rest, making sure the blank clears the tool rest before turning on the lathe. And continuing the process of getting it to round. Slowly increasing the speed as well. Here I believe I was around 500 RPM. Maybe 550. So it can be somewhat of a tedious process to get something into round like this. If you have a bandsaw and can make it round on the bandsaw, that's an advantage. My bandsaw blade is not good right now. I need to replace it, so otherwise I would have used the bandsaw. So this is a maple log sourced locally here in Maine, and it's been drying for about 18 months or so, and the moisture content was around 11%. And I'll put a link to the moisture meter that I use. It's an Amazon link. It's pretty reasonable as far as price goes, and I find it pretty dependable. Finally switched over to the bowl gouge here. This is a Carter & Son bowl gouge. I'll put the link in the description. And I've increased the speed here to around 750 RPM, which is possible because it's a semi-round shape at this moment in time. A little bit of a close-up shot here. Because of the varying height on this bow blank, or the depth, there were some edges that were not turning like the other ones, so really made it a little bit more of a slow process. Starting to work on the bottom and the curve. Here, also using a Carter & Son bowl gouge, but this is the larger one I have. So here I'm really starting the shaping process, shaping of the sides and the curve near the bottom. I'm going to be putting a foot on this, which is not complete yet. Just trying to get the general shape the way I want it before I make the foot, and then flip it around. And as you can see, it's still really steady and strong in the worm screw. Finishing up on the bottom, and then I will be making the foot. Be making a mortise and a foot. I also get asked a lot of questions about a tenon or a mortise. For me, it really depends on the size of the piece. If it's a small bowl, I'll do a tenon and then turn that off in the end. If it's a larger bowl like this, I generally do a foot, although I have done some the other way as well. But all comes back to personal preference. Here is the skew chisel, just squaring up the foot, making sure things are sharp and clean. And now turning off the little nub in the middle of the foot. Remove the tailstock here, and now I'm able to flatten out the mortise. If you want to check out some more social media from PF Woodturning, go over to Instagram and Facebook. You can search for PF Woodturning on both of those sites, and I'm there, and I will put a link in the description. Starting the sanding process at 80 grit, and I work my way up to 400 grit. And I don't film it all, or this video would be 4 hours long, so you're welcome. Taking out the woodworm screw and flipping it around in the mortise, making sure that's tight. And originally I intended to make this a live edge bowl, but some of the bark didn't stay on, so it didn't end up being quite a live edge bowl like one of the last ones I did, but I still liked the rim format in the end, even if there wasn't bark on there. And these live edge bowls can be challenging for a lot of different reasons. It depends on how the grain pattern goes, if you're turning end grain or side grain, if you want to leave the bark on, and generally live edge bowls are not perfect as far as the rim. There's a high spot and a low spot, which can make turning and sometimes especially sanding kind of tricky. So just continuing the hollowing process here. Nothing too exciting. Use the bowl gouge for most of the hollowing. Stopping every so often to both sharpen the tool and to see the progress. Here I switched over to the Jimmy Clu's hollowing tool, which you saw me use in the beginning. Hey, if you're watching and you like what you see and you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button. It really helps my channel, helps me out tremendously. I really appreciate your support. And if you have a question about any of the tools or ways that this was completed and turned, let me know in the comments. I do answer every question or comment. I do read them all, so it's the best way to ask a question if you have one. Back to the bowl gouge. So as I was hollowing, I ran into this, I don't know what to call it, bark inclusion or a dead piece of the wood. And I was getting close to the thickness I wanted, so it wasn't coming all the way through. This tape was put there just for safety, really, to make sure that resin will get out any way it can. So I decided to fill the hole with some epoxy. And this is pigment copper penny. So mixing that in with the Total Boat resin. And this is the medium hardener. I'll link both Total Boat and this black diamond pigment in the video description if you're interested. So just going slow to have the bubbles release as much as possible. You never know with an opening like this how deep it goes, or how much resin you're going to need. I did pour a little bit too much resin, but and after 24 hours, back at the hollowing process, smoothing out the resin. And this cured in less than 24 hours. It was just the next day when I came back to it. Sanding, sanding, and more sanding. Used a combination of power sanding and hand sanding. Denatured alcohol to clean the dust and debris. And you can see that the resin piece there. Using some Danish oil, which is food safe. And this is the fun part because it does bring out the beauty in the grain of the wood. And I don't know how well you can see the resin there in the copper color, but I think I'm going to call this bowl the Eye of the Tiger because that's what it reminds me of. Let me know what you think, if that's a suitable name or what you would name it. I'll be interested to see if you have any other names. So here are the glamour shots, if you will. Here's the Eye of the Tiger. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you subscribe and give a thumbs up if you like the video. So until next time, peace out.